I'm Ben Smith, Senior Vice President of Experience at Hulu, and I'm super excited to be here at CES 2016 with ARF.
You were in the Peace Corps, so
Yes.
how do you find yourself here in CES in 2016?
It starts with why people go to the Peace Corps,
Yeah.
and what I have found is there's kind of two kinds of people that go. There are adventurers, and there are people who are altruists. And everyone has a sense of they want to
Out
make
to
the
help
world a better
people.
place. That's right.
Yeah.
It's compulsive. They can't help it.
Yes.
For me, there's a kind of deeper sense of that I came in with and certainly learned there and got reinforced with is that the way you make the world a better place is by starting with the people closest to you. The thing that I really learned there is in the Peace Corps that I do today, and certainly was a pivotal in how we designed Xbox, was to really look at how people live their lives,
Yes.
to find out how you could make their life better. So to me, was the continuum of actually being a product designer, is observing how people live and where you could build something that, whether it's commercial or not commercial, that would genuinely benefit their lives, because that's where your success is going to come from. And that's the same thing I do now at Hulu.
I really like your point though on imprinting, because I think one of my personal early imprints was the music from public radio at lunchtime, because my dad would come home, he was a professor, and they would listen to that every single lunchtime at noon. And I think, that I still think, I'm curious if you agree that that still is pervasive in branding and advertising today, that you can kind of imprint. And is that an approach that, Hulu, how are you approaching experiences and branding at Hulu?
Yeah, well, I do believe that there's a large degree of imprinting. Is an interesting word. I would say maybe slightly differently of just developing habitual behaviors.
Yes.
And some of those habitual behaviors are driven intentionally, where there's been a designer behind the scenes that says, I will create this ceremony and drink more Ovaltine suddenly becomes part of the cultural ethos. Other times it just happens. As we think about the changing role of how people watch TV, we've got an interesting, for the first time I think in the last century, we've got an interesting demographic problem. Problem's the wrong word, it's situation here where...
Opportunity.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, because now for the first time there's a group larger than baby boomers, the millennials, who are completely and distinctly different even from Generation X. So there's an interesting, as we look at the way people consume television, what their sensitivities are to programming, binge watching, advertising, what devices they watch it on. We've got two groups of people who are the two largest audiences. Baby boomers still the largest consumers of television, millennials the largest group of consumers of digital, and we're right at that nexus. And they're really, really, really different.
Yeah.
So, for us, we're looking at how do we habituate positive behaviors for the experience in the business with millennials and start to change some of the deeply ingrained habituated behaviors of baby boomers.
Right. Do you think that, because I had an interesting conversation with someone yesterday, do you think that millennials' behaviors and values will change as they get older and, get maybe more established in jobs and have families? And
I think having families and being around families changes everybody, wherever you are in the world.
Yes.
So I think that's inevitable. But I think the core of what makes millennials will stick. They're digital natives. They grew up in a much more kinder, gentler kind of universe than certainly that I did, or going back through baby boomers to the Depression era.
Right. Let's talk about failure. Face any failure along the way, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in a lot of ways there's been more failures along the way than successes, but a lot of those failures happened in controlled small ways, because I think that's part of the creative process.
How do you control failure?
You build small, you get it from small groups of people.
So you lean toward risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the creative place. That's where you'll develop something truly special. It's easy to go and copy something else someone has done or make something 5% better, but for me, that's not fundamentally interesting. It's more I want to bring something new that really changes the way that people see their part of the world and just makes them happier. And that's all going to be about building something people haven't seen. You know, the phrase I like to use is I want to surprise people in unexpected ways. And if I can accomplish that, then we can say, is it a good surprise or a bad surprise? And then hone it and kind of go forward there. And then some of the things that are successes are actually end up being failures too. A phrase I like to use in team building is never to confuse being lucky with being good. And it's really difficult sometimes to know whether you are lucky or good, and time is the only way to kind of figure that out. And the same thing happens with failures. Sometimes you're just unlucky.
From a consumer standpoint, and you talked earlier about creating good experiences for people, it feels like you really simplified the buying process, you know, at the kind of $11.99 a month, and just make it easy for them.
Yeah, that's what we want to do.
How did you come about doing that as part of your success story?
You know, for us, like it starts off with when you think about what's happening. This is where I think about how people like act in their lives. When someone comes to Hulu, whether it's on their living room or on their tablet or on their phone, they've already given us the most important piece of information about that experience. They've told us they have low energy. So they're not going to go cook a big meal. They're not going to call a friend on the phone. They're not going to go to the gym. They're not even going to go read a book or a magazine. They've said, I have low energy and I want to be entertained. And to me, the subtitle of that is, don't make me work for this. So we have this relentless focus on, are we making people work? Are we making people work to understand our product offering? Are we making people work to sign up?
Okay, so one prediction for 2016.
I think what we're going to see in 2016 is something, it'll be a bit of a cliche, but it's something I do believe, that we are entering into the golden age of television, where the content that's available is so unbelievably good. And we're starting to see that now happen with movies as well. So we went through a period of I think of movies where it was about sequels and building the franchises, comic book to screen, young adult to screen. And I think what we're going to see is a distinct trend started in the second half of 2015 to 2016. We're going to see a lot of the creativity come back into TV, a lot of the creativity come back into movies, because a lot of the influence is shifting back where it needs to be with the creators. In that creative vision. So there's more risk-taking on Hollywood, from TV to movies, to players like us in the streaming space with Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, with HBO. I think all of this benefits viewers at the end of the day, but it also benefits the creators, because there's more places to tell your story and your narrative. So I think we're just going to see more content, more shows, more movies, more creative, that we just fall in love with at a visceral level. And I'm super excited about that.
Well, I love that. It's been just a real pleasure to spend a little bit of time chatting. And
absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Spending time together.
Great.